Class, can you please take a second to ponder one question? Name one thing that has not changed over time. Atoms. That's very nice. All right, so nearly everything has undergone some amounts of change, aside from atoms, of course, and will continue to undergo change even though their electricity changes its course all the time. And one of those things is text, that is, writings of peoples from far-off lands and far-off places. Most honorable members of the tribunal, yours truly, Sean Stern, stands before you today as a rhetor to engage with you in an exploration of a claim. That claim is the biographies of Jesus, that is, the New Testament, were handed down to us in a reliable way and thus accurate to describe Jesus' life, given that the facts to be plausible and coherent. The reliability of the text I refer to is this: the method in which scholars believe reliability of text in example to others. This affirms a Bible which has more criteria of any text fulfilled. Okay? Criteria: date, amount, and copies. The date in which scholars use for criteria, that is, the date from the original manuscripts to the soonest known manuscripts. The Bible trumps all other ancient manuscripts. If I may make a few examples, Homer's Iliad, 1,000 years from the original to the newly discovered. Tacitus' Annals of Imperial Rome. Josephus' The Jewish War, 300 years for that. Buddha, Teachings of Buddha, 800 years from the original to the most recent source. Muhammad, 140 to 200, the biography of Muhammad. And side note, the following, all of this information I'm giving you is from an interview conducted by Lee Strobel, interviewing Bruce Metzger in his book, The Case for Christ. And Dr. Metzger is a universally recognized scholar as a leading authority on the following matters. He holds offices at Princeton Theological Seminary, holds a master's and doctorate from Princeton University. All right, so you got the ancient books. The Bible has the most time, the least time elapsed from the original manuscripts to the newly discovered manuscripts, okay? Now, because the Bible, of course, has manuscripts, over 20,000 manuscripts dating from 200, or as early as 100 to 500 AD, okay? Nearly 20,000 manuscripts. And more than 5,000 of these contain New Testament writings. The closest ancient text in comparison is the Iliad, with 650 manuscripts. All right? So also, the copy of manuscripts from different languages and regions, these 20,000 manuscripts come from different languages and regions. And as Metzger quotes, more often you have copies that agree with each other, especially if they emerge from different geographical areas, the more you can cross-check them to figure out what the original document was like. The only way they agree would be where they went back genealogically in a family tree that represents the descent of the manuscripts. And these manuscripts come from places like Armenia, translations from Gothic, Georgian, Ethiopic, Latin, Syriac, and Coptic, okay? Second point for the Bible's validity and Jesus' life is corroboration, that is, evidence supports from other testimony which affirms or back up essential elements of an eyewitness account. All right, so all this is from Edwin Yamak, PhD of Miami University. All right? All Christian sources aside, so if you take all Christian sources of things that are not the Bible pertaining to things of the Bible, you take all those away that are from Christian sources, and they all affirm that Jesus was a teacher, he could heal, he was confirmed the Messiah, or he supposed himself as the Messiah, he was rejected, he was crucified, he suffered a shameful death, he was worshipped as God. Total of 39 ancient sources document of Jesus with over 100 facts. 24 of these cites by Habermas, 7 secular sources of those. Several of the earliest creeds of church pertaining to the divine nature of Jesus. All right? And some examples are Josephus that wrote the Antiquities. He also wrote Testimonium Flavianum. Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, Talus's work. All these works help to corroborate what Jesus confirmed to be. In conclusion, because of corroboration and the manuscripts and their dates, copies, and abundance, we can say that something as important as the Bible, which in importance surpasses that of most ancient texts, has most evidence of any ancient text, and therefore is a reliable source of Jesus' life and has been passed down reliably. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, Sean, I think the opening is a little awkwardly phrased. It's, what would you say? There's the term I'm using. It obscures a little bit the purpose of your claim with, some grandiose language. And I understand that you're trying to make it an interesting declaration, and it's almost like an evangelical sort of appeal that you're making in the context of a court, or like you were speaking to, the Greek court of the day. You don't need to do that. Let's go back to the, keep it simple. For the purpose of clarity, I think it would be so much easier if you just stuck to a more straightforward form of address here. I think that becomes a problem because you've got a structure in the speech, but the structure is not really clear until you get to the supporting points. When you get to the supporting points, I kind of understand what the first point is. I'm having to make an inference the way all of those things are being put together. The second point is much more clearly labeled. It still is phrased a little bit awkwardly, but I know what the point is that you're trying to make there. And once again, this is mostly language things and just getting things clear at the beginning of the speech. The evidence that you present is primarily taken testimonial evidence. You do have some statistical information and examples that you're pointing to, and I think that those are utilized pretty well. I think that the sources are only partially cited sometimes. For instance, it sounds to me like you're giving me a secondary quotation from the interview with the theologian that you quote, and instead of a direct quotation. And one of the first things that pops into my head, similar to something that came up earlier, and that is, well, how old is this information, or is this testimonial that's being given? And for contemporary reference, it might make sense if there was new data available, if we had more recent discoveries, if, well, you mentioned, the Dead Sea Scrolls being relatively a recent discovery, if we had. Did you mention that, or was that the earlier speech? I'm conflated. Yeah. So having that in my head, if there's something that's come since then, I think that would make more sense for the argument. Yeah, like I said, there's a little bit of conflating there. That's my fault. Sorry about that. I did think that because you kept your claim relatively narrow, that you did a better job arguing it than you might have otherwise, because you basically are sticking to the idea of the historical accuracy of the Bible in telling the biography of Jesus, and I think that that's perfectly fine. I was kind of surprised. I've heard this argument before, and there's other supporting points that have been used to match those kinds of arguments dealing with public records and geographical history and those kinds of things also. And it seems like you're very dependent on the script and text of the time, and I think that that's okay. I did like the independent sources that you're using that are non-Christian based. I thought that that was a good referent. I think you could have used a little bit of detail from some of those points, because what we're getting is the conclusion rather than the evidence itself there. All right, thank you.